In the city of Savatthi, almost every kitchen had mustard seeds. They were kept in small clay jars near the fire, beside the rice, beside the oil, among the ordinary things a household reached for without thinking. And yet, on that morning, not one house could give a grieving mother what she needed. Not because mustard seeds were rare, not because the people were cruel, but because she was not really asking for mustard seeds. She was asking for one place on earth where death had never entered. She was asking for one doorway untouched by loss. She was asking for an exception. Her child no longer answered her voice, but her arms still held him as if love, if it held tightly enough, could call breath back into a silent chest. And the Buddha did not argue with a shattered mother. He only gave her one small task. Go, knock, ask. And perhaps this is why the story still reaches across so many centuries. Because most of us know something about holding on. Maybe not in the same way this mother held her child. Maybe what you have carried is quieter. A room you have not changed. A message you have not deleted. A photograph you still turn face down, then turn back over. A name your heart still hears in ordinary sounds. And if this is true for you, it does not mean you are weak. It does not mean you have failed to move on. It may only mean that you have been carrying a loss for so long. Your hands have forgotten what it feels like to rest. Grief can become a kind of loyalty. Pain can begin to feel like proof that love was real. And so the heart keeps watch. It keeps the lamp burning. It keeps the door open. It keeps asking for one more sign that what is gone is not completely gone. This story will not ask you to forget. It will not promise that one night can heal what time itself has not healed. But it may help you see what you are still holding. Why it has grown so heavy. And how, perhaps only a little, you might loosen your grip before sleep. Before we enter the streets of Savatthi with her, let the body arrive here for a moment. Not to fix anything, not to force peace, only to notice where you are. Let your shoulders drop, even slightly. Let the jaw soften, as if it no longer has to hold the words you never said. Feel your hands. Perhaps they are resting on the blanket, or beside you, or folded near your chest. You do not have to open them yet. Just feel how much they have carried. Feel the quiet weight in the chest. Not as an enemy, only as something that has been asking to be seen. And beneath all of it, notice the bed holding you. You are not holding yourself alone. The breath comes in. The breath goes out. Somewhere in the story ahead, there is a mustard seed small enough to rest in a palm. For now, only rest your palm. The morning in Savatthi began before the sun had fully risen. A thin blue light rested over the clay walls and narrow lanes. Smoke lifted slowly from cooking fires. Somewhere, a wooden door creaked open. Somewhere else, a broom scratched dust from a threshold. The city was not yet loud, but it was already waking. Women bent near small hearths, blowing gently into the embers. Rice was rinsed in earthen bowls, oil warmed in dark clay lamps. The smell of damp ground, ashes, and morning grain moved softly through the streets. Near many fires, there were little jars. Some held salt, some held lentils, some held mustard seeds. Tiny, yellow-brown, ordinary, the kind of thing a hand could take without ceremony, the kind of thing no one guarded. A pinch for cooking, a pinch for medicine, a pinch given to a neighbor without counting. In one house, a child coughed awake and was lifted to his mother's shoulder. In another, an old man sat quietly near the doorway, wrapping cloth around his knees. A merchant's servant pushed open a gate. A stray dog slipped between two baskets. The first sellers carried their goods toward the market, their footsteps soft on the packed earth. Everything in the city seemed to know how to continue. Everything except the woman walking through it. Kisā Gotamī moved as if she had not heard the morning begin. Her hair had loosened. Her face was pale from a night without sleep. In her arms, she carried her little boy close against her chest. Too close, as if the warmth of her own body could lend him warmth. As if the strength of her arms could keep the world from taking one more breath away from him. People saw her coming and grew quiet. Some lowered their eyes. Some whispered her name. But she did not stop for their pity. She was looking for medicine. Before that morning, Kisā Gotamī had known another kind of silence. Not the silence of death, the silence of being unseen. She had come into her husband's house thin, poor, easy to overlook. Her name was spoken, but rarely with tenderness. In the rooms where other women moved with confidence, she moved carefully, as if every bowl she touched might be judged, every word weighed, every mistake remembered. She learned to make herself useful. She rose before others. She washed cloth until her fingers wrinkled. She cooked rice without wasting a grain. She listened more than she spoke. She carried small humiliations the way poor women often carried water, steadily, without spilling, because no one had asked whether the pot was heavy. Then the child was born, and for the first time, something changed. The same household that had looked past her began to look toward her. Someone called her mother with respect in the voice. Someone placed better food near her hand. Someone asked whether the baby had slept. The child's small body became the place where her own life finally seemed to matter. She loved him, of course, but it was more than love. He was the first warm proof that she belonged somewhere. She knew the sound of his breath in sleep. She knew the weight of his head when it fell against her shoulder. She knew how his fingers opened and closed around the edge of her cloth. She knew the little crease that formed between his brows before he cried. So when his body became still, her heart did not understand it as an ending. It understood it as an error. Something had gone wrong. Something could still be corrected. There must be a healer, a root, a chant, a medicine, a hand wiser than hers. And when she heard of mustard seeds, she did not see philosophy in them. She saw a way back, a small seed, a small chance, a small doorway through which breath might return. Perhaps grief often begins this way, not as acceptance, not even as sorrow, but as the desperate belief that if we can find the one right thing, the one right word, the one right door, then what has happened will become unhappened. And so Kisā Gotamī held her child closer, not because she was foolish, because the world had taken from her the one thing her arms still knew how to hold. At first, people tried to help her in the only ways they knew. An older woman came from the next house and touched Kisā Gotamī's shoulder. Softly, she said the words no mother should have to hear. The child is gone. But those words did not enter Kisā Gotamī as truth. They entered as violence. Her arms tightened at once. Her body turned away. She drew the boy closer beneath her cloth, as if the woman's voice had reached out to take him. No, she said, not loudly, not with madness, only with the firmness of someone standing before a door she could not allow to open. Another neighbor brought water. Someone else whispered that the body should be prepared before the heat of the day. A man lowered his eyes and offered to call her husband's family. But each kindness sounded to her like surrender. Each practical word seemed to say, stop being his mother now. And that was the wound she could not bear. If she let them wash him, he would be dead. If she let them carry him, he would be dead. If she placed him on the mat and stepped back, even for one breath, the world would close over him like earth. So she kept him in her arms. The pain was not only that the child had stopped breathing. The pain was that her love had nowhere to go. A mother's hands are made to feed, to wash, to warm, to shield, to lift a child from sleep. But now every gesture of care had become a way of refusing the one thing care could not change. There are days when the mind cannot survive the whole truth at once. It chooses one small task instead, one more healer, one more house, one more chance. And before the city had fully woken, Kisā Gotamī had begun to ask everyone she met where medicine could be found. As she moved from house to house, the city began to blur. Faces appeared, spoke, faded, doorways opened, then closed. But inside Kisā Gotamī, one thought kept returning in different forms. If I had noticed sooner, if I had held him through the night without sleeping, if I had found the right herb before dawn, if I had prayed with more faith, if I had been a better mother. The mind does this when loss is too large. It walks backward through rooms that no longer exist, lifting every moment, turning it over, searching for the one place where the ending might have been changed. She remembered the night before, the small cough, the heat on his forehead, the way his fingers had curled, then loosened. She remembered a woman once saying that some children were born under fragile stars. She hated that memory now. She hated every word that sounded like fate. She hated every face that looked at her with pity. No, there had to be something still undone. There had to be someone she had not asked. As long as she kept moving, she did not have to sit beside the truth. As long as there was another lane, another courtyard, another healer's name, the child in her arms was not yet only a memory. And beneath all of this was a fear she could not have spoken. If she stopped searching, would that mean she had agreed? If she let others prepare the body, would that mean she had abandoned him? If she placed him down, would the world decide she was no longer his mother? Perhaps you know a quieter form of this. The old conversation replayed again. The final message read again. The last photograph enlarged, studied, touched with a thumb, as if some hidden answer might appear if the heart looked hard enough. This is not weakness. It is love trapped inside a question it cannot answer. So Kisā Gotamī walked on. Her arms ached. Her throat dried. The morning grew warmer. And with every step, the task became smaller and more impossible. Not a cure for death. Not yet. Only one person who would say, yes, go to that house. There is still a way. By mid-morning, someone finally said the name of the Buddha, not as a cure, not as a promise, only as the last kindness people knew how to offer when every other word had failed. Go to Jetavana, a woman whispered. The blessed one is there. So Kisā Gotamī turned toward the monastery. The road out of the city was quieter. The market noise thinned behind her. The air beneath the trees held a different coolness, shaded and still. Leaves moved softly above the path. Dust clung to her feet. Her arms trembled, but she would not loosen them. When she came before the Buddha, she did not bow as others bowed. She came like a person running out of shore. Lord, she said, give me medicine for my child. Those nearby grew silent. Some looked away. They were waiting for the words she had refused all morning. But the Buddha did not strike her with the truth. He looked at the mother. He looked at the child in her arms. And in that stillness, there was no disgust, no impatience, no correction, only a seeing so complete that even her brokenness did not have to defend itself. Then he said, gently, I can make medicine for him. Her eyes lifted. For one breath, hope returned so suddenly it almost looked like life. But you must bring me a little mustard seed. A mustard seed? She asked. Yes, he said. From a house where no son has died, no daughter has died, no mother, no father, no husband, no wife, no servant, no friend. Bring mustard seed from a house where death has never entered. The words were simple, too simple to resist. A house, a seed, a question, something her feet could do, something her hands could still ask for. She did not hear the impossible inside the instruction. Not yet. She heard only that there was a task. And if there was a task, then perhaps the story had not ended. So she bowed quickly, almost impatiently, and turned back toward the city. Behind her, Jetavana remained quiet. Before her, Savatthi waited with all its kitchens, all its doorways, all its small clay jars filled with ordinary mustard seeds. And Kisā Gotamī walked toward them, carrying her child, carrying her hope, carrying the question that would slowly open every house. At the first house, the woman who opened the door did not hesitate. "Yes," she said, "we have mustard seeds." She turned toward the hearth, reached for a small clay jar, and lifted the lid. For a moment, Kisā Gotamī's whole body leaned forward. There they were, tiny seeds resting in the bottom of the jar. So ordinary, so near. Then the woman asked, "From what kind of house did the Blessed One say they must come?" Kisā Gotamī repeated the words quickly, "A house where death has never entered." The woman's hand stopped. The lid remained open. Her eyes lowered. "My father died in this house," she said softly. Kisā Gotamī stepped back at once. Then this house would not do. There were many others. She went to another doorway. And another. At one house, a man looked at the child in her arms and swallowed before speaking. At another, an old woman touched the jar of mustard seeds but did not open it. Somewhere, a young girl said her little brother had died before the rains. Somewhere else, a servant whispered that her mistress had been buried only last month. Each time, there were mustard seeds. Each time, there was also a name. A father, a daughter, a husband, a child. At first, Kisā Gotamī heard only failure. "This house cannot help me. This house cannot help me. This house cannot help me." But after many doors, something very small began to change. Her steps slowed. Her breath, which had been held high in her chest all morning, dropped a little lower. Her arms still held the child, but not with the same hard fear. When the next woman opened her jar, Kisā Gotamī did not look only at the seeds. She looked at the woman's face, at the grief already living there. And for the first time, the mustard seeds did not look like a cure. They looked like something every house had. And still, not enough. The mustard seeds were never the difficult part. That was what began to trouble her. In every house, there was some little jar, some small packet, some handful waiting near the fire. People had them for cooking, for remedies, for ordinary days when the body needed warmth and the meal needed flavor. No one refused her because they lacked seeds. No one turned her away because they lacked kindness. They only could not give her the one thing hidden inside the Buddha's request: a house untouched by death, a doorway where no one had ever stood weeping, a bed where no breath had ever stopped, a name that had never become memory. And slowly, without anyone forcing it on her, Kisā Gotamī began to see that she had not been searching for medicine alone. She had been searching for a world where love could be strong enough to make life stay. This is where the teaching begins to breathe. Impermanence is not only a word for monks, or temples, or old scriptures. It is the simple, painful truth that everything we love is moving. The child's breath, the warmth of a hand, the voice at the door, the shape of a family, the life we thought would continue tomorrow because it was here yesterday. We know this in the mind. But grief is what happens when the heart cannot yet live inside what the mind knows. So the heart keeps reaching. It reaches for one more explanation, one more chance, one more object that still smells like them, one more memory arranged exactly the way it was. And there is nothing shameful in this. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending the loss was small. It does not mean forgiving what hurt you before your heart is ready. It does not mean becoming noble, quiet, spiritual, or above sorrow. Letting go means something much more honest. It means noticing when love has been asked to do what love cannot do. Love can remember. Love can honor. Love can keep tenderness alive. But love cannot turn yesterday back into today. It cannot force a silent chest to rise. It cannot make a closed door become the old room again. And when love is forced to fight reality, it becomes suffering, not because love is wrong, but because it is being made to carry the impossible. The mustard seed was small, but it showed her this. The thing she needed was not in any kitchen, not because the world was cruel, because no house had ever been spared from change. And perhaps, as you listen in the dark, this story is no longer only about a woman in Savatthi. Perhaps there is some small thing in your own life that has become heavier than it looks. A message you still read when no one knows. A shirt you cannot give away. A room you have left almost unchanged. A photograph you keep near you. Not because you need to see it every day, but because moving it feels like another kind of goodbye. Or maybe the thing you hold is not an object. Maybe it is a question. Why did it happen that way? What if I had answered sooner? What if I had stayed? What if I had noticed the signs? What if I had been easier to love? Better at caring? Stronger? Wiser? More patient? The mind can turn one loss into 1,000 little doors. And it keeps knocking. Not because you are weak. Not because you do not understand that life has changed. But because some part of you may still be asking for the one house where death never entered. The one version of the past where the person stayed. The one answer that would make the ending less final. That may be your mustard seed. Small enough that others may not even see it. Heavy enough that you feel it every night. You may carry it as a habit, as a memory, as a private ache in the chest, as the feeling that if you stop hurting, you will somehow love them less. But love does not need you to suffer in order to remain love. And tonight, no one is asking you to erase the message. No one is asking you to empty the room. No one is asking you to become peaceful before you are ready. Only this. Notice what your hands have been holding. Notice how long they have tried to keep the past breathing. And if they cannot open yet, let them at least know they are allowed to be tired. So let the practice be very small. Not a ceremony. Not a promise. Only a quiet gesture inside the body. Imagine, if you can, one mustard seed resting in the center of your palm. So small it almost disappears. And yet, in the story, a seed that small carried the weight of everything Kisā Gotamī could not accept. Perhaps your mustard seed has another shape. A sentence. A face. A last day. A room. A version of life you still reach for in the dark. You do not have to throw it away. You do not have to say you are done grieving. You do not have to open your whole hand. Only notice the grip. Notice if the fingers of the heart have curled around it so tightly that even love has begun to hurt. And now, with the next breath out, let one finger soften. Only one. Let the palm remain partly closed if it needs to. Let the seed still be there. Let the memory still be there. But let the body know it does not have to hold the entire past with the force of tonight's pain. Breathing in, you are still here. Breathing out, you do not have to carry all of it at once. The seed is small. The love is real. The loss is real. And still, for this one breath, the hand can loosen a little. And so, for tonight, nothing more has to be solved. You do not have to understand the whole shape of your grief. You do not have to forgive before your heart is ready. You do not have to repair yesterday. You do not have to prepare an answer for tomorrow. You do not have to decide what to keep, what to give away, what to change, or what to leave exactly as it is. Let all of that wait outside this breath. Kisā Gotamī did not find the house she was looking for. She did not find the one doorway untouched by loss. But somewhere along the road, her hands began to learn what the heart could not yet say. Love can remain, even when the struggle softens. And perhaps that is enough for this night. Not full peace, not an ending. Only enough space for the body to rest beneath what the heart still carries. The message can remain unread or read again tomorrow. The room can remain as it is. The memory can stay near. The tears, if they come, may come gently, but the whole weight does not have to be held inside your chest until morning. Imagine setting it beside the bed, not far away, not forgotten, only beside you, close enough to honor, far enough to let the body sleep. The mustard seed is still small. The love is still real. The loss does not have to be denied, but your hands can rest now. Your shoulders can rest. Your breathing can find the dark and move through it. And for this one night, you do not have to prove your love by hurting one more time.